Hello. Today's story has moved on. One day Jesus is riding into Jerusalem on a donkey, being welcomed as king into the city, with the crowds cheering and shouting and calling his name. But the very next day, he finds himself in a garden called Gethsemane, and is there all by himself and feeling very alone. And I wonder how this came to be, how one day the crowds are all around him, shouting and welcoming him in, and then the very next day he finds himself all alone. As the story moves on, Judas, one of his disciples, had agreed with the priests of the day to betray Jesus for a sum of money. And so he brings some armed guards into the garden to arrest Jesus. Peter, another one of Jesus' disciples, decides to follow to see what happens. But he keeps his distance because he's frightened. He's really quite scared of the armed guard. But he's also very intrigued to see what happens. And so he follows. And this is how the story goes.
Oh, you found me. I've been hiding here all night. I tell you, last night, it was very strange. I'm just so ashamed of what I've done. I mean, right from the word go, when Jesus knelt down and washed our feet, it was going to be very different. After the meal, we all went out to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray, and it was really late. And I just couldn't keep my eyes open. I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I could see there was Jesus ahead of me, just there, and he was praying. And I could see that something was troubling him. And then it all happened. There was a big noise, and we could see a light coming through the garden. And it was Judas. And he had some of the priest's guards with him as well. And with that, Judas came up to Jesus and said hello. And the guards, they rushed up and they grabbed hold of Jesus and they tied him up. They had swords, they had spears, they had flaming torches. We were so afraid. Me and the other disciples, we legged it. Well, they grabbed hold of Jesus and they led him out of the garden back to the city. I didn't want to get caught, but I wanted to find out what was going on, so I followed in the distance, in the dark, hiding in the shadows. And they led Jesus into the city, through the streets to the temple, and into the huge courtyard. And there was a great big crowd of people there. And they held on to Jesus there, waiting for the priests to come out. And again, I wanted to find out what was going on. So I hid myself in the temple, in the courts, in the shadows. But it was in the middle of the night and it was freezing. And then some of the servants in the temple, they lit a huge, great big bonfire to keep warm. And I thought, I'll risk it. I need to get some warmth. So I came out and I stood with the rest of them, just keeping my hands warm, watching Jesus over the other side of the courtyard. And then I realised everyone around the fire, they were looking at me. One of the servant girls said, I know you. You're with that Jesus, aren't you? And I said, no, I'm not. No. Went on a little bit longer. One of the guards that was warming himself by the fire said, yes, you are. You've got the same accent as Jesus. You're from the same part of the country as him. No, I'm not. I don't know who this Jesus is. And then another one said, I'm sure you're one of Jesus' friends. You talk just like him. Look, leave me alone, I said. I don't know who this man is. And then somewhere out in the city, a cockerel crowed. And I realised what I'd done. It was just as Jesus had said. He'd said that by the time it got to morning, I would have told people, not just once, not twice, but 3 times, I didn't know him. And I'd just done it. With that, I got up and I ran out of the courtyard and through the city and out into the town, into the woods to hide. And I found this tree and I've just sat down and I sobbed and I've sobbed and I sobbed. And I've been here all this time. Oh, I am just ashamed of what I've done. I've let Jesus down. Oh, what will people think of me? Look, just leave me alone so I can just be here on my own.
Thank you, Keith. I don't know about you, but I find that that's quite a difficult story to listen to. A friend betrays you and hands you over to an armed guard and takes money for doing it. And then another friend who's been with you for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, a close friend, refuses to admit that he knows you, that you're even a friend. And I wonder, as you listen to that story, as you heard Keith telling it, I wonder if you've ever been betrayed by anyone. I remember a time when I was a young boy. I had a friend called Corin, and I used to help him with his paper round. And we'd tootle about on our bicycles, throwing the papers over the garden fences and the gateways, sometimes popping them through the letterboxes. And we had a great time, the two of us. But one day, Corin's parents discovered that my parents were religious, that we were a religious family. In fact, like me, my dad was a vicar. And Corin's parents thought religion was rubbish, and so prevented us from being friends. I felt terribly betrayed. It's not what I thought friendship was about. So we're going to spend a few moments just thinking and being still. And as we think and as we're still, let's just think and ponder what it's like to feel let down. So we just spent some time thinking about what it feels like for us to be betrayed or to have been let down by someone. It's not really a very nice feeling, is it, to be let down? And so I want us now just to spend a moment thinking about how we might help someone else who's been let down. What might we say to them to help them or to encourage them? You see, although Peter had let Jesus down, Jesus wasn't quite finished with Peter. And later on in our story, we will see how Jesus seeks to restore Peter back into friendship with him, back into a kind of a right relationship where there are no issues between them. But that's a story for another time. For now, I would like us just to explore together what we could do, what you could do to help someone who's been let down. Or maybe they've just been upset by something else. How would you comfort them? How would you reassure them? How would you encourage them? Because whatever the cause of their sadness might be, I'm sure there's something we could say or do to help them. What would you do? What would you say?